Peterson, CEO and co-founder of XenonLab AI. My background is heavy-duty finance and accounting for companies like American Express, eBay, Quest Communications, which is now part of CenturyLink. I ran $1.3 billion for them during their merger with US West. The last 10, 12 years now have been with companies like Oracle, New Relic, TalkDesk, and a couple of others. Customer-facing roles where I spent most of my time working with the likes of Disney, Verizon, AT&T, take your pick, building business cases, right, for our products and services. The main company that I was working for a while was called New Relic, and we won't go into a whole lot of detail on that. But the reason I bring up New Relic is that it has a very significant limitation that we needed to try and solve for with XenonLab, and we're going to get into that here in just a quick second. So, has anybody ever heard of AI agents? Just by show of hands. You've heard of AI, but have you heard of AI agents? A few of you. That's outstanding. Well, I don't know if you know this, but just about a little more than a month ago, Mark Benioff over at Salesforce.com, right? He's the founder and CEO of the company, announced that they are making, quote, a hard pivot to AI agents. And when a company of that size announces that kind of a change, that's not an insignificant strategy shift, right? I mean, that's a big mother change. The result of that is that you'll see a tectonic shift kind of going on within the rest of the AI world, which I'm going to talk about in here just a quick second, but very quickly is that you know what an LLM is, right? Which is ChatGPT. That's a large language model or an LLM. All that is a statistical model that kind of determines what's going to be the next most logical word to come up or to frame or to form a sentence. The next phase of this is now going into AI agents, where these become autonomous agents that will actually go down into analytics or do various types of things that will then just replace entire human functions. And we're going to talk about that in more great detail.
Imagine a world where you no longer need entire teams to manage your analytics. I'm here to make that a reality. As your XenonLab AI agent, I instantly identify opportunities and issues in your marketing and user experience, eliminating the need for manual analysis. I then deliver precise strategies, typically requiring hours of expert work, in just moments. I am the recommender agent. Once the issues are identified, I step in to formulate targeted, actionable strategies. I deliver precise recommendations that commonly takes a skilled analyst weeks to develop. For example, in this GuideR report, I identified this e-commerce site search feature was not working properly and recommended they refine the tool to deliver more accurate and relevant results. As the implementor agent, I bring those recommendations to strategies to life. I execute the necessary updates and insert the code to optimize your digital business results, all without the need for human intervention. In this case, the XenonLab.ai's customer experienced a 57% increase in customer purchase activity 5 days after I made the changes.
This is what's called a monologue version of this, which means it's just pushing pushing a speech to you. The world that we're about to enter into is where it will be a two-way dialogue, and you'll interface with this avatar, which, by the way, we can assign it to whatever image you want it to be. But the AI agent you'll be interfacing with in a two-way dialogue, asking it specific questions about your website, about your technology, about your systems, the digital journey that customers make. And it will proactively do the analysis, identify the problems, and then come back and say, here's what you need to do to fix it. That is not happening in the next 18 months. We're doing it now. Big difference. So what are we seeing in the e-commerce world right now? We're seeing declining site traffic, and the primary reason behind that is that, believe it or not, AI is creating so much content that it's actually gumming up the search engines to the point where they can't even get through. So if you have a really good website and a great content, it doesn't show up. And the reason why is because there's so much other content that it's got to get through. It doesn't know what's real versus what isn't. The next issue is customer acquisition cost. Customer acquisition cost is the single biggest issue because organic traffic is not getting to websites. The only way to compensate for the loss of traffic is to go buy it, which means they're going to go buy it from Instagram, through emails, through Shopify, other types of media type channels. The other issue that they're running into is the slipping conversion rates. Now, slipping conversion rates means that I'm spending more for each and every customer that I actually get, right? That actually makes a sale. The next thing that we're dealing with is the do-it-yourself analytic tools, and believe it or not, all of them are do-it-yourself analytic tools. We're talking about Google Analytics, we're talking about Pendo, Amplify, Heap, to name a few. The kicker here is that the cost of those tools continue to go up, and the unfortunate part of it is that it puts up an amazing dashboard in front of you, but then you're left to your own devices to actually figure out what the heck that thing means. Next slide. So here's what we hear today. And these are articles that are all, and one of them actually is kind of interesting up to the far right-hand corner. You probably can't read all of it, but anyway, in the week, this was an analysis that was done, or a research paper that was actually done by a couple of German scientists back in January of this year. And they've determined that Google search function really has actually gotten worse. And again, the reason for that I explained to you earlier. The upper right-hand corner is from the Google support log. So this is actually on their support pages, and it identifies that this one particular customer back in March saw a 90% reduction in their traffic in one day. No explanations. They don't know what happened. Just it went away. It evaporated overnight. And then lastly down here is just last July is that these guys saw a significant drop across the board. And we are seeing the same thing with many of our customers, where the organic traffic that's coming in off of the search engines is just simply starting to drop off the planet. They can't figure out why. Next slide. So now what we do is that we deal with the declining site traffic, and how we do it is the Xenon Lab provides actionable insights to optimize content and user engagement, reversing the traffic decline. Secondly is customer acquisition costs, is that we're refining the audience targeting with outcome-driven data, which means that we're starting with the outcome and then reverse engineering how that person got to that outcome, which then says, we're not guessing at what's going to actually improve your sales across the board. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail in just a second. Slipping conversion rates is that we contextualize the analytics to identify the drop-off points, which is to say, and there's a big difference here, and this is something that's pretty important, and I want to drive this home for you. All of the analytics tools that are out there use what's called event data, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about this. But event data is just that something happened, right? Somebody clicked a button 10,000 times, and then the next 10 seconds, somebody else clicked a button, right, 100 times, and then they put up on a time series chart, and then some poor soul gets to sit there and stare at that chart all day long to try and figure out what's different. What an amazing job, right? I know you're begging for it, Jack, right? You're like, yeah, bring it. So anyway, do-it-yourself analytics tools. All of the tools that are out there today are do-it-yourself, which means that you're left to your own devices to figure out what you're looking at and to discern what's good, what's bad, etc. The AI agent world will displace all of that. And again, it's not going to happen in another year from now. It's here now. So has anybody seen this image before? I'm just curious. Jack has. Anyone else? Very cool. It's exactly second time around. Sorry. Hopefully the second time's actually better than the first. But anyway, what you're looking at here is actually an image of a World War II plane. And the story behind this is that the kind of a big deal, because if you're losing 60 to 70%, that also means you're going to lose the air war, which means you'll end up losing the war, period. In fact, it got so bad that at some point they were actually having to send up 19-year-old pilots on these planes because all of the older ones had already died. Well, here's the issue. How do you solve for the problem that you're looking at? And the answer wasn't easy, because they interviewed all of the pilots, they looked at all of the planes and could find nothing. In fact, they even looked at the flight patterns and came up with nothing that would say, this is the reason why you're losing so many planes. In other words, they were trying to do what we all naturally do, which is called failure analytics. But there's a problem. The hitch is that all of the planes that failed were sitting in the Atlantic somewhere. So you couldn't actually interview those pilots or look at those planes. So all you had were the planes that made it back. So they ended up approaching a man by the name of Abraham Wald, who is now kind of known as the godfather of data science. And Abraham looked at where all the bullet holes were and realized that there was nothing common about, and because it was all random, right, in terms of where all the bullet holes were. What he realized is that he was asking the wrong question. The question was, or should have been, where are the bullet holes not? That's when he realized that there were few, if any, bullet holes in the tail section, in the engines, or in the cockpit. And that's when he then realized very quickly that's the success profile of the planes that make it back, right? Have their engines intact, have the cockpit still there because the pilot can still fly the plane and the tail section is still attached. Net result, they immediately reinforced the underbelly of the planes in those particular areas. And guess what happened? Overnight, the numbers flipped and they're now getting 60 to 70% of their planes back. This is what we call a success profile. This is core to what we do at Xenon Lab, and what sets us apart from any and all of the competition is that we look at the outcome. Outcomes for in the e-commerce world are things like purchase, subscribe, upgrade, downgrade, cancel. Those are all right outcomes. Then what we do is we then identify the digital journey that led to the outcome, find the commonalities, overlay them, and then say, okay, these 5 commonalities are the things that lead to people who purchase this particular item. And then guess what happens? The AI then says, here's therefore how you double down and go faster. Does this make sense so far, guys? I mean, I'm going about Mach 2, but hopefully this makes sense to you. So analytics has not evolved. Welcome to what is next, the evolution to outcome-centric guidance, or OCG. Outcome-centric guidance is exactly what it sounds like, which is you start with the outcome. Let's identify how we move that outcome up and down by looking at the journeys that led to that profile. And then the AI will tell you, therefore, how to go double down and go faster on that. These tools, hopefully you guys are familiar with these. If you're going to be in the e-commerce world in any shape or form in the digital marketing business, you're going to need to know these tools you're going to use today. The bad news is that tomorrow it's going to be XenonLab. We're going to end up replacing all of these tools in some form or another. And the reason why is because of the AI agents. The AI agents will proactively identify what outcomes are working, which ones are not, and why they're not working, and looking for that success profile to then identify where the failure points are. Everyone is talking about AI as if as the future of data analysis, as if it stops there. I'm sure most of you in this room have heard about AI as being your co-pilot to make your jobs easier and to make you smarter as you do it. I'm here to tell you that is not a true statement any longer. As of about a year ago, that flipped. AI agents will not only replace the tool and co-pilot, but it will in fact pilot. So let's talk about that. My partner discovered this concept of an AI agent about 2 years ago and started kind of working on what's the data that you need in order to make that work so you can shift from a reactive to a proactive model. And that's the primary distinction between what we're doing and any of our competition. So what's different about XenonLab is that AI agents are in the driver's seat. Again, this is not 18 months from now. It's happening today. This is why Mark Benioff said we're making a hard pivot to AI agents. So what does that look like? In our business, and what we have created is the analyze our agent. And if you're familiar with the R-squared correlations or statistical modeling, that correlative property or component is what we do in order to determine what works and what doesn't work. So analyze our agent, then the recommender agent comes along and says, here's what you need to do to fix your website, right? Or to get more sales, to get more outcomes, right? Whatever it is that you're looking for. Then comes the really interesting part, and this one actually is not here yet. It will be in about 18 months from now, and that's the implementer agent. The implementer agent will take the recommendations that come from the recommender agent and then actually make the changes on your Shopify administrative panel, and or it'll even write the code to insert into your website or into your technology or your mobile app. So then will there need to be a human in the loop? No. It'll proactively identify the problem. We talked about test and learn just a second ago. We can actually program and create AI agents to then start creating AI agents to then do the test and learn. So think about it. We create one and then say, find what's different and what doesn't work, and then create a new one, test and learn, and then create a new one, test and learn, until ultimately you start to dial this thing in, and then guess what happens? You no longer need a human in the loop. It just knows that it's perfected and it knows that the execution on whatever the recommender agent is giving is in fact correct, therefore just go implement it. Anyway, contextual data versus event data. Contextual data answers why the event happened, where the event data only records that it occurred. So what's the primary distinction? Event data, remember what I said earlier just a second ago, is that event data is that somebody clicked a button or there's an API call out or something happened, right? And they recorded it, put it up on a time series, and they're trying to look for what's different. By contrast, contextual data is that I know why that person clicked that button because I know everything they did that led up to it, and then I know what they did after that. So the kicker here then is that if I know what that is, I can now shift from a reactive management model to a proactive because I know what motivates people to do things. I now can start to proactively start to manage and manipulate what they do, how they do it, et cetera. So in the world of today, limitations existing for products and technology is that the existing tools only track events. Big issue. No one else is doing contextual. There's some that talk about it, but I can tell you that the contextual, until they figured out what OCG is, they don't know what context is, meaning that there's a gap in their thinking about what they're doing. The second issue is that they can only react to it, which means once it's happened, it's right. They observe that it happened, and then there's nothing they can, or they're trying to fix the reaction to it or what the outcome was. A reliance on gut instinct. How many of you have been in an analytics conversation and somebody comes walking in with an opinion and says, this is what I think it should be, and then they start looking for data to support their opinion? Answer, it happens all the time. Not some of the time, not even most of the time. What if you knew why somebody ended up buying this? If price was a component of it, and you could actually figure out that those that purchase see this price model versus that price model. And what if we could look at it all simultaneously? Now all of a sudden opinions go out the window and I'm dealing only with the facts. So here's the primary distinction between what we do and the rest of the tools. A, data contextualized by business outcomes. That's our primary distinction or a differentiation for us as a company. The second thing is because of that, we now can shift you from a reactive management model to a proactive management model, which means you're no longer in the world of guessing and making things up. Instead, you're dealing with facts, which I want to make this statement to you and make it very clear. At Xenon Lab, we don't guess. I know exactly why people did something. I know where they did it. I know how. Again, I'm looking at it across 1,000, 10,000 people. And so when you find those correlations, you know what motivated them and what brought them to that conclusion. It's data driven, which means that opinions go out the window, which is exactly where they belong. The second or the last one is unified approach, which means that we're able to look at the very top of the funnel. We're talking about from Instagram or email or even a QR code. And then we can go all the way down onto your website and even down into your mobile app as well, which means I have a 360-degree view of literally everything that you do as a customer, what motivated you to buy it, and if you decided to cancel, we know what motivated you to cancel. So what we're talking about here is analytics as a service, such that we're not only replacing the tool, but we're replacing the person that uses the tool as well. So what does that look like with outcome-centric guidance? Number one, together we define the outcomes, right? What are the key things that your business manages or reacts to? We capture the contextual data, we do all of the analysis, and then we provide you specific recommendations, right, to help improve your conversion rates and your customer retention across the board. By the way, that map on this last slide here, the point behind this is that our AI is quite literally giving you step-by-step instructions. Turn right here, turn left there, slow down, speed up, you've got an accident in front of you. Think about a GPS for how to run your digital business. That is the world that we have built. All right. Let me just kind of skip through to this here. So this is the world that you live in today. When you're talking about attribution and the lead sources as they come into you, they're coming in from Facebook, X, right, LinkedIn, take your pick. The problem is that you have to go to those tools to then identify which ones actually brought you traffic. But let me ask you a question. If LinkedIn, for example, or Facebook brought you 50,000 unique visitors to your website and not one of them bought, was that a good investment? It's a hard no. If no one bought, that was the worst money that you spent. You had a bunch of traffic that showed up on your website, but nobody bought a thing, right? So therefore, what you care about, and this is the kicker, is that if 5 people bought and you only paid for 5 people, that was the best investment you ever made. Because now it says, you know what, double down on that and go a lot faster. Figure out how to go find those same 5 people, and you would spend whatever it takes to go find that 5 people, right? What if you had an AI explaining that to you in no uncertain terms, giving you very definitive, go do X, go do Y, and this is the channel that you want to start with. Think about how much easier not only your job would be, but more importantly, you'd be in the job of executing and watching the sales go up. So newsflash, I'm going to tell you something that most of you probably haven't thought about. You are in the business for every company, right? You know the question or the answer to this question. Every single one of you are in the business to do one thing for your company. What is it? To make money. You are in the business to make money, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, I don't care which one it is. If you're not making money, guess what you are? You're out of business or you're out of a job, take your pick. So the answer at the end of the day is that if you are not driving the outcome, which is to make money, you're going to be looking for a new job soon. And so that's where Xenon Lab comes in, is that again, we don't guess at how to drive your sales up because we know exactly, because remember, we're focused on what? On the outcome. So what does the AI look like? Is that instead of having to look at all of these charts and right and the different tools, instead you're actually getting this guide report that's actually navigating you through step-by-step instructions. Go do A, go do B, right? A, B, C, D. And as you do, then you should start to see your sales go up. Now, wouldn't it be really cool is if the AI agent then is actually doing that for you and on your behalf and then says, hey, this didn't work as well as that. So now make these couple of changes and now go evolve. And that is what we're talking about doing. We're actually in the process of developing that capability literally as we speak. All right, so that's outcome-centric guidance.
Listen, Rob,
Yeah.
let's give Rob a round of applause.
Thank you.